My name is Cassia Vale, 28 years old. Austin's October heat felt like a damp hand pressed over the mouth, heavy, breath-stopping, when I slid into my parents' dining room and saw the place set like a stage, linen runner centered, crystal sweating in the humidity, the chandelier humming faintly above us, as if it registered tension as electricity. My father, Thomas, didn't bother with small talk. He reached the end of grace, tapped his knuckles once on the table, then dropped the hammer. "Step down from Dawson Dynamics," he said, each word planed smooth and hard. "Effective Monday." My mother's bracelet ticked the rim of her plate. She didn't look at me, only past me, composed in a way that always made bad ideas look expensive. "It's time for your sister to take the lead," she added, voice like pressed linen. "Monica will be CEO." Monica smiled the way people do on red carpets, chin tilted, eyes moving just enough to catch an imagined camera. She had that soft focus glow that made board members believe in adjectives. "You'll thank us," she said, taking a sip of white wine. "This is best for the company." The chandelier's note deepened. I could almost feel it buzz the crown of my head. I didn't pick up my fork. I watched my father's face for a sign of the man who taught me to solder a crooked joint back into use instead of throwing the whole assembly away. The man who told stories about the early days. Garage heat, folding tables, the thrill of a working prototype after midnight. That man had been carved down to suit, chair, and an empty place where curiosity used to sit. "Just to be clear," I said, when it felt like I should contribute something to the theater, "you're promoting the only person at this table who can't log into her own email without calling it." Monica's smile thinned. "Leadership isn't about keystrokes, Cass. It's vision." I didn't argue. I counted, quietly, all the 3 a.m. redeploys I'd done in the last year. The 14 months Ryan and I had spent building Dawson Sync from a scaffold of caffeine and stubbornness. The $100 million contract from Carlos's chain that landed in my inbox at 6:08 a.m. on a Thursday and made my father's eyes shine like an old bulb given fresh power. I counted how praise had shortened into good work and how Monica's calendar had grown fat with investor coffees, while mine collected bug reports with timestamps like open wounds. I counted a Slack message I'd screenshotted 2 weeks ago. "She's a great coder, but she doesn't have the presence to lead." Monica didn't write it. She didn't have to. Her gravity warped rooms into that shape. "Here's how this goes," my father said, misreading my silence. "You announce you're stepping back to chief architect. Monica takes CEO. We do a clean press cycle. You focus on what you're excellent at." "Cooking your dinner," Monica murmured, so softly only I heard it. My mother's bracelet clicked again. She drew in a breath that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and obligation. "We'd prefer you not make this difficult." "Prefer." I almost laughed. There was an email on my phone, unresponded to, that used that same word in a different context. Legal/compliance prefers the mission-critical key be placed in escrow with dual control. The recommendation came from a weary auditor with a calendar full of crises. Mom had forwarded it to me weeks ago with a note. "We'll circle back after launch. Optics matter." We never circled back. Optics did. I exhaled, slow. The hum above seemed to key itself to my pulse. That other hum, mine, lived in server racks, tucked deep into the core of Dawson Sync, where the world couldn't see it but felt it. The heartbeat I wrote when Ryan convinced me you can protect your work without burning the building down. Not a kill switch, a duty cycle. Every 72 hours, a private attestation to prove authorized hands were still on the wheel. Not sabotage, insurance. Disguised as a compliance module with a name as boring as oatmeal. Quiet as breath, firm as bone. "Cassia," my father said, a bruise of impatience appearing in his voice, "look at me." I did. It was easier than looking at my mother, who believed that if the dinnerware was aligned, the family would follow, or at Monica, who believed anything said confidently enough became true. "Resign," he said, "or you're out of the company, out of this family. When people threaten to cut you loose, they assume you came to the table needing their rope." "Okay," I said. My mother's head twitched, a flicker of confusion. Monica's smile faltered. My father's eyebrows lifted half a degree. He'd prepared for arguments, petitions, maybe some tattooed drama. He hadn't prepared for minimalism. "I won't be your chief architect," I added. "You have a CEO. Have her architect you something." Don't be petty, my mother snapped, brittle for the first time. The chandelier's hum jumped like it had stepped on a live wire. I reached for my bag. My chair slid back with the soft scrape of wood resigning from duty. I wanted to throw something, just once, slam a glass, and let the crystalline shatter speak for me. But I have always been the kind of person who rewires the house in daylight, with the main breaker off, wearing gloves. I stood instead and smoothed the runner where my fingers had wrinkled it, because I am also the kind of person who can do two contradictory things at once. Monday, my father said, as if the world were a calendar he still controlled. Formal letter. Would you like a draft for your press release? I asked. He didn't know what to do with that, so he said nothing. Monica mouthed, coward, which is a word people with a crowd around them use when someone declines to perform inside their ring. I walked out before the steam could fog my face. In the foyer, the family photos watched me pass, a gallery of past compliance, matching sweaters, ribboned certificates, a golden plaque with legacy, engraved in font, so ornate it said nothing. I paused at the side table where incoming mail rested in a neat stack, bank envelopes addressed to accounts payable, and one thin white slip with my name misspelled Cassia Vale. I slid that one under the bottom envelope with one finger because I didn't want to know right now if neglect had a new alias. Outside, the heat took my breath, then handed it back to me when the night wind moved. Ryan sat in his Civic at the curb, window down, hair pushed up by his hand in the way it always is when he's working a problem in his head. He looked at my face once and didn't ask what happened. He opened the passenger door and I got in. Do you want words or silence? He asked, eyes on the windshield, hands still on the wheel like we were already moving. Reality, I said. My voice surprised me. It had steel in it that I'd only felt in code reviews or when servers came back online in the smallest hours of the morning, and I felt like a god nobody would ever shake hands with. He nodded. Reality. You don't owe them the illusion they purchased. Reality. The module will do what it's supposed to do. It will not crash anything. It will degrade, and only if they ignore every warning you wrote into it. We didn't drive yet. We sat and watched the house. Through the dining window, I could see my parents' silhouettes, two statues arguing with their pedestals, while Monica typed, probably crafting the story already. Founder's daughter graciously transitions to technical advisory. She would make sure it sounded generous. She was very good at generous-sounding theft. You're not going to enjoy the next 3 days, Ryan said after a beat, gently, like when you tell someone a shot will pinch. I haven't enjoyed the last 3 months, I said, which made him huff something halfway between a laugh and a curse. He leaned over and kissed my temple, not because we're the kind of couple that kisses on camera, but because I think he wanted to put a pin in reality for me to find later if everything blew away in a sudden gust. My phone buzzed. Board group email. Subject line, transition plan, draft. Attached. A PDF full of bullet points and verbs that mean replace. I didn't open it. Another buzz. A DM from a junior engineer. Are you okay? Another. A calendar invite for a Monday morning all hands labeled celebration. The chandelier's hum seemed to follow me out here, or maybe it lived in my skull now. Ryan put the car in gear. Where to? Home, I said. Backups. Wipe my laptop of anything they can call property. Pull the audit logs and make sure the attestation trail is clean, time-synced, and readable by an auditor who doesn't like me. Done, he said. The engine caught, a small animal waking. We rolled away from the house, and I watched it diminish in the side mirror until the white columns on the porch looked like teeth. At the first red light, I pulled out my phone and typed a text with my thumb. I didn't add a gif or a joke or a sad face to soften it for the part of me that always wants to make disaster fun. I typed what the next 72 hours required of me. We go dark. Lock holds. Ryan's phone buzzed with it. He didn't look, just reached for my hand, eyes still on the road, like you do when you've rehearsed the scene, and now you're playing it for real. Behind us, Austin's heat pressed down on the city and made the air waver, a mirage over asphalt. Ahead, the skyline lifted out of the dark, like a board stacked with glass pieces no one had knocked over yet. The hum in my head steadied to something that felt like a decision you make with your whole body. I put my phone face down in my lap and watched the light change. 14 months earlier, I was in the glass-walled office that smelled of burned coffee and hot circuitry, fingers pounding a keyboard while the sun slid down, Austin's skyline unnoticed. Dawson Sync wasn't code anymore. It was a living pulse inside me, and every keystroke felt like grafting sinew to bone. Ryan sat cross-legged across from me, his laptop balanced on his knees, sweat-dark t-shirt clinging to him as he muttered curses at a Stack Overflow loop. We weren't just writing an app. We were trying to bend time itself. Supply chains didn't wait. Trucks idled, shelves went bare, customers raged on Twitter. Dawson Sync had to predict everything before it happened. Inventory needs, bottlenecks, delivery delays. I tuned algorithms like a violin, shaving milliseconds, watching simulations run smoother each night until Ryan would break into a grin and shout, "Yes!" loud enough for the cleaning staff to shake their heads at us. The company had once been my father's garage dream, soldiering through lean years with secondhand servers, my mother running numbers late at night. Now, 30 years later, Dawson Dynamics was mid-sized, respected, but never explosive. I wanted to change that. Needed to. When Carlos Vega, supply chain manager for a national retail chain, signed our pilot contract, the email subject line read simply, "Let's do this." I printed it out and taped it above my desk like a talisman. The rollout exceeded every forecast. In 6 months, Dawson Sync generated $100 million in revenue, a number that made boardrooms whisper and my father's eyes gleam with something I thought was pride. But at the same time, Monica, the one who couldn't write a for loop if her life depended on it, was on stage at a networking event describing Dawson Sync as her vision for the future. I wasn't even in the room. A junior engineer texted me the quote, "Cassia's great at coding, but she doesn't see the bigger picture. Monica does." Ryan found me staring at the message, my fingers trembling. "Don't let it eat you," he said, brushing hair from his forehead. "You built the engine. She's just polishing the hood." I nodded, but the words lodged deep. My family was starting to believe Monica's version of events. I caught my mother whispering once, "Monica has leadership qualities Cassia just doesn't." My father clapped Monica's shoulder after she pitched some half-baked global expansion strategy, his laugh booming in a way I hadn't heard directed at me in years. At the next board meeting, I presented the real numbers: reduced shipping costs, predictive accuracy hitting 92%. I stood in heels that pinched, sweating through my blazer while Ryan squeezed my hand under the table. For a brief moment, the applause sounded genuine, but then Monica leaned in, tossing out words like scalability and global market positioning, and suddenly the applause shifted toward her. My father's grin lingered on her face long after mine had disappeared. The Austin tech circuit wasn't kind either. At a Dell-hosted event, I overheard a startup founder whisper, "She's just the tech grunt. Monica's the strategist." The words cut, not because they were true, but because people wanted them to be. Ryan and I talked late into the night over cardboard pizza, the glow of Lady Bird Lake through our window. He laid it out plain. "They're grooming her to be the face. You need to protect what's yours." That's when we created the lock. Hidden deep inside Dawson Sync's architecture, disguised as a compliance safeguard, was a biometric checkpoint only I could pass. Every 72 hours, it needed my fingerprint. Without it, the system wouldn't crash. It would wither. Predictions would skew. Delays would compound. Clients would feel the rot from the inside out. "It's not revenge," Ryan said, tightening the code. "It's leverage. If they push you out, they'll remember who kept the lights on." I tested it, hand pressed to the sensor, watching Dawson Sync shudder, then breathe again. A god in my own small Olympus. Still, I hoped, naively, that my family would see, that the numbers, the contracts, the app saving millions would speak louder than Monica's smile. I wanted to believe the years I'd poured into this place still mattered, but under every late-night push, every victory email from Carlos, every bug squashed at dawn, I felt the ground shifting under me. A quiet fault line, stretching, waiting. By summer, Dawson Sync had become the heartbeat of Dawson Dynamics. Carlos Vega's chain raved about cost savings, and his praise rippled outward, pulling in new clients, new contracts. Revenue reports painted our office walls gold. But every victory I celebrated alone. Monica wasn't just riding my coattails. She was stitching herself a new identity from my work. At a tech mixer downtown, I caught her on stage declaring Sync was just the first step in my global vision. The audience nodded like disciples. My jaw clenched so hard Ryan had to put a hand on my back, grounding me. At home, the shift was unmistakable. Emails from my father shrank into clipped logistics. My mother's calls turned into monologues about Monica's charisma at investor lunches. They stopped asking about my code, my endless nights debugging servers. Instead, they applauded Monica for thinking big. I tried to swallow it. I told myself, they'll see eventually. The truth always surfaces. But each family barbecue felt like a stage play where I wasn't cast. At one, Monica outlined a global expansion plan in buzzwords, while my father beamed. When I offered insight about scalability, my mother cut me off with a polite but sharp, "Let your sister shine, Cassia." That night, Ryan poured me wine and said the words I didn't want to hear. "They're erasing you." He wasn't wrong. Whispers in Austin's startup scene grew sharper. Someone asked me once if it was true I was just the coder behind Monica's genius. I laughed it off, but inside I bled. That's when the lock became more than insurance. It became necessity. Ryan and I spent nights cloaked in monitor glow, embedding it deeper. We made it look like a routine security protocol, buried under jargon no board member would ever question. My fingerprint was the heartbeat. Without it, Dawson Sync would limp and stumble until clients screamed. It wasn't sabotage, it was survival. Still, I clung to hope. Carlos Vega would call me directly. "Cassia, your app's saving us millions. Don't let anyone tell you different." His voice was a lifeline, proof that someone outside my bloodline saw my worth. But inside Dawson Dynamics, the narrative calcified. Monica became the visionary. I became the engineer. Then came Susan's call one humid afternoon. Her voice was silk stretched over steel. "Monica's showing real leadership," she said. "You should focus on technical work. Translation, step aside." The next day, a text from my father landed like a blade. "Monica has big plans. We need you to support her." Support her! The words echoed until my skin felt too tight. That night, pacing my apartment, Ryan said quietly, "They're betting on Monica's smile, but when Sync hiccups, and it will, they'll crawl back to you." I wanted to believe, but the ground was cracking faster now, and beneath it, the lock pulsed quietly, waiting. That October Friday, the air inside my parents' dining room felt heavier than the Austin heat outside. Silverware gleamed like weapons laid out before battle. I'd come hungry, expecting maybe a toast for the 100 million milestone Dawson Sync had hit. Instead, I walked into an ambush. My father's fist struck the table. The sound silenced even the hum of the chandelier. "Cassia, effective Monday, Monica takes over as CEO. You'll resign." My fork froze midair. I thought I'd misheard. But then my mother, calm, crisp, deliberate, added, "If you don't, you'll not only leave the company, you'll leave this family." Monica leaned back, wineglass in hand, smirk sharp enough to cut. "Face it, Cass. You're not a leader. You're just the coder." The words should have gutted me. Instead, something inside me went cold. I scanned their faces. My father, rigid with self-righteous certainty. My mother, avoiding my eyes, hands fidgeting under the tablecloth. Monica, radiant in her moment, convinced she'd won. "After all I've built?" I asked, voice steady. "You're brilliant at the technical side," my father said, dismissive. "But Dawson Dynamics needs vision. Monica has that." Vision. I almost laughed. Vision hadn't written a single line of code. Vision hadn't bled through nights of debugging servers until dawn. I rose, my chair scraping across the hardwood. "Fine." The smirk slipped from Monica's lips for half a beat, replaced by something wary. She hadn't expected it to be that easy. My father frowned, confused by the absence of fight. My mother's eyes flickered with doubt, as if some part of her wondered if they'd miscalculated. "Draft your press release," I said, adjusting my jacket. "But when the system you don't understand starts to fail, don't call it vision. Call it negligence." Monica snorted, trying to reclaim ground. "Empty threats. I'll lead just fine." "Good luck," I said, and walked out. The family portraits in the foyer blurred as I passed them, all smiles and matching outfits. For a moment, I remembered my father telling me stories about soldering circuits in that old garage, about resilience, about never letting anyone own your spark. Where had that man gone? Outside, the night air wrapped me like a dare. Ryan waited at the curb, headlights cutting a path into the dark. He didn't ask questions, just read my face and started the engine. "They did it, didn't they?" he asked. I nodded, staring out at the city lights. Monica's CEO. They told me to quit or lose them. Ryan's grip tightened on the wheel. Then let them lose you. The words settled in my chest like steel. Behind us, the Dawson house glowed, full of certainty and champagne. Ahead, Austin stretched out wide and waiting. And deep inside Dawson Sync, buried where no one but me could touch it, the lock pulsed patiently, counting down. 1 week later, my phone lit up before sunrise. Carlos Vega's name blared across the screen. I answered, still half asleep, coffee untouched on the counter. Cassia, what the hell is happening? His voice was taut, sharp. Inventory predictions are off by 40%. Warehouses are in chaos. Trucks are idling. This contract is worth $100 million. If Dawson can't deliver, we're pulling out. My pulse quickened, but I kept my tone calm. I'll look into it. What I didn't say, the lock had triggered, right on schedule. Without my fingerprint to renew it, Dawson Sync wasn't crashing. It was slowly suffocating. Predictions degraded, subtle enough to look like system instability, and Monica, with her arsenal of buzzwords, had no idea what to do. By noon, my inbox was a graveyard of frantic messages from Dawson engineers. Cass, servers are throttling. Monica's screaming at us to fix it, but she doesn't understand the code. I pictured her pacing in the glass conference room, hurling empty jargon while the system unraveled. Then came the sleek black car outside my apartment. Out stepped Daniel Harper, the family's lawyer. He carried a briefcase like it was a shield. Cassia, he said, voice oiled with urgency. Thomas needs you back. Name your terms. I leaned against the doorframe. Funny, last week they said I was out of the family. Daniel adjusted his tie. The board is panicking. Investors are restless. If Dawson Dynamics fails, your father's legacy dies. Is that what you want? The word legacy almost caught me. Almost. But then I remembered Monica's smirk across that dinner table, my mother's silence, my father's ultimatum. That's their problem, I said coolly, not mine. That evening, Susan called. Her voice shook, but she laced it with guilt. Cassia, please, don't destroy the company. This is our family's work, your father's dream. My knuckles whitened around the phone. You told me to resign or lose you. You made your choice. We didn't mean it like that, she stammered. Monica's just struggling. We need you. I hung up before her words could snake into my chest. Ryan found me pacing our apartment, eyes blazing. They're begging now, aren't they? They are. Then make them pay for it. His voice was steady, but a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. That night, I drafted an email to Daniel. Consulting only. $2,000 an hour. No equity. No apologies accepted. Take it or leave it. By morning, the reply came. Agreed. Start immediately. For the first time since that dinner table, I laughed. Dawson Sync was still mine. They just hadn't realized the full price yet. Walking back into Dawson Dynamics was like stepping onto a stage where the actors had forgotten their lines. The glass doors slid open, and Brenda at reception blinked up at me, her relief almost audible. Cassia, thank God, she whispered before catching herself. I mean, welcome back. They'd given me a corner office for my consulting, but I barely sat there. The real work lived in server logs and code traces, and those I controlled. I patched just enough to stabilize Carlos's warehouses, to keep shipments from collapsing completely. But the heartbeat lock? Untouched. My fingerprint still ruled the core algorithm. Monica could have every corner office in Austin, every glossy photo in Tech Weekly. Without me, the system limped. Inside the office, tension reeked like burnt wires. Engineers staggered under sleepless eyes. Monica prowled the halls in heels too sharp for carpet, barking optimize, innovate, a line as if repetition might fix code. In one meeting, while I calmly explained a data flow workaround, she burst in red-faced, finger stabbing the air. She's sabotaging us, Monica shouted, pointing straight at me. The room froze. Clients on the video wall blinked, confused. Engineers stared at their keyboards. Really? I said softly. Because I've been the only one keeping this afloat while you throw buzzwords around. Carlos's voice came through the speaker, brittle with anger. If this isn't resolved, Dawson's in breach. We're already considering legal action. Monica stammered, pivoting to strategic realignment like it was a lifeboat. Nobody bought it. The meeting ended with her storming out, and the engineers looking at me like I was the last sane person in the building. That night, Ryan and I worked side by side in our apartment, laptops glowing like twin beacons. She's unraveling, he said. glancing at a thread of client complaints online. And you're writing the narrative in real time. As if to prove him right, my phone buzzed. A message from Janet Myers, CTO of a rival firm. Your work is the talk of Austin. Join us. We'll give you equity and freedom. Tempting, but not yet. The next day, my father cornered me in the hallway. He looked 10 years older, his voice cracked. Cassia, fix this. For real. Please, the company's bleeding out. I folded my arms. You told me Monica had the vision. Let her fix it. His eyes darted away, shame pooling in the wrinkles. We were wrong. For a second, I almost softened. Then I remembered the taste of betrayal from that dinner table. The smirk. The ultimatum. I'm consulting, I said coldly. That's all you get, for $2,000 an hour. He swallowed hard and walked away. I should have felt guilt. Instead, I felt the hum of power, quiet and steady. Dawson Dynamics had gambled on Monica's charm. Now the bill was due, and I held the receipt. 3 months later, Monica's wedding glittered like a magazine spread. White roses cascaded from archways. String lights draped the estate like constellations. Guests clinked champagne glasses, laughter spilling across the manicured lawn. But I wasn't there for the romance. I stood near the back, black dress sharp against pastel gowns, watching Dawson board members sip wine as if their company wasn't hanging by a thread. Monica, glowing in lace, floated through the crowd on Ryan's arm. No, not my Ryan, hers. She thought this day was about triumph. She had no idea it was about exposure. Carlos Vega had emailed me that morning. We're cutting half the contract. Dawson Sync is unstable. Fix it or we walk. The timing couldn't have been better. When the speeches began, I stepped forward. The microphone felt cool in my hand, the murmur of guests dimming as I cleared my throat. Dawson Sync's core algorithm, I said, voice steady, requires my fingerprint every 72 hours. Without it, the system fails. The silence was electric. Champagne flutes froze midair. Monica's bouquet slipped slightly in her hand. That's why your warehouses are crashing, I continued, locking eyes with the board. I built it, and I control it. Gasps rippled through the room. Monica's face blanched. She shoved forward, her voice shrill. You're betraying us, sabotaging your own family. I didn't flinch. You stole my work and crowned yourself queen. I safeguarded what was mine. My father pushed through the crowd, his face flushed. Cassia, enough! Take a leadership role again. Fix this, and we'll make it right. Susan's hand clutched my arm, tears streaking her mascara. Please, Cassia, for your sister, for family. I pulled away, iron in my chest. You chose her over me. You don't get to beg now. Whispers churned among the board. Carlos shook his head, his expression a storm of frustration and grudging respect. Monica's lips trembled, rage and fear warring on her face. I set the microphone back on the stand and walked out, heels striking sharp against the marble. Behind me, voices collided, accusations, sobs, promises. Ahead, Ryan waited by the car, leaning casual but grinning like a man who'd seen the match lit. You did it, he said, pulling me into a fierce hug. It's not over, I murmured, heart still pounding. Because earlier that week, I'd signed a contract with Janet Myers. Equity, creative control, a team that respected me. Dawson Dynamics was Monica's circus now. Nexus Flow, mine, was about to be the show everyone wanted tickets to. 2 months after Monica's wedding collapse, the Austin spring breeze carried something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. I stood inside the sleek offices of Janet Myers' firm, watching Nexus Flow, my new creation, chart numbers Dawson Sync could only dream of. Within its first quarter, revenue crossed $200 million. Engineers clapped each other on the back, cheering at dashboards lighting up green. Janet, grinning wide, clapped me on the shoulder. You've outdone yourself, Cassia. Dawson Dynamics will never catch you now. I smiled, but inside it was quieter. The victory was sweet, yes, but I also felt the ache of what I'd walked away from, the family I thought I had. Meanwhile, Dawson Dynamics crumbled. Carlos cut his contract completely. Blogs splashed headlines. Family feud, sinks Dawson legacy. Investors fled. Thomas sold the family's sprawling villa just to keep the lights on. Monica's name became a punchline in Austin tech circles, the CEO who couldn't log in. Then came the texts. Monica first. I'm sorry, Cass. Can we talk? I stared at it, thumb hovering, before pressing block. Susan escalated. sending Daniel Harper, their lawyer, into my new office with a proposal to reconcile, to rebuild. I skimmed the paper, laughed, and slid it back across the desk. No thanks, I'm done. That evening, Susan herself called. Her voice was sharp, desperate. Cassia, you're tearing us apart. I leaned against the window, the Austin skyline glittering like shards of glass. Remember that dinner? I asked quietly. You chose Monica, I chose myself. Then I hung up. For the first time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore, just free. Weeks later, beneath the canopy of oak trees by Lady Bird Lake, I chose something new. Ryan stood across from me, eyes warm, as our friends and Janet's team cheered. Our wedding was simple: wildflowers, laughter, vows spoken in voices that didn't shake. When he whispered, "We made it, Cass," I squeezed his hand and knew he was right. As we danced under the stars, I understood the lesson in my bones. Family isn't blood. Family is those who see your worth and never ask you to shrink to fit their comfort. Dawson Dynamics limped along, a hollow shell, headlines branding it a cautionary tale. But I no longer carried its weight. I had Nexus Flow, I had Ryan, I had myself. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Spring in Austin bloomed brighter than I'd ever seen it, but maybe that was just because I was finally breathing without a weight pressing on my chest. Dawson Dynamics was collapsing. Its name dragged through every business blog and podcast like a cautionary parable. One headline stuck with me. When vision outpaces reality, the fall of Dawson Dynamics. Monica tried one last time. A letter, handwritten, trembling lines, smudges where ink blurred. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You're stronger than me, Cass. Always were. Please, don't shut the door forever. I read it twice, then folded it neatly and slid it into a drawer. Not in anger, just acceptance. Some doors don't slam. They close quietly. Thomas and Susan retreated into silence. The villa was gone, the condo small and unremarkable. Neighbors whispered about their downfall. I didn't need to add to the chorus. When Susan called again, her voice brittle, I listened this time. She tried to explain. Pressure from investors, fear of losing the company, pride in Monica's charm. Excuses dressed as reasons. For the first time, I wasn't tempted to argue. Mom, I said gently, I don't hate you, but I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep you warm. There was a long pause, then just a whisper, I understand. It wasn't closure, but it was enough. Nexus Flow soared beyond anything I'd imagined. Small businesses adopted it eagerly. Cafes, bookstores, community grocers. The tech community hailed it as the antidote to bloated corporate software. Every milestone felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd once traded for my family's approval. Ryan and I made a home together overlooking the lake. Our wedding photos, wildflowers, wide smiles, sat framed on the mantel. No forced poses, no masks, just us. One night, as city lights shimmered on the water, I jotted a line in my notebook for the book I'd always threatened to write. Sometimes the truest loyalty is to yourself. Because when you stop letting others define your worth, you finally begin to live. I closed the notebook, leaned into Ryan's shoulder, and let the silence settle soft around us. For the first time in my life, silence wasn't a void. It was peace.